Across the country, Amazon employees are turning hourly jobs into higher-paying careers with on-the-job skills training and benefits that start on day one.
I had lost my job, so when I started at Amazon, biggest perk right off the bat was day one benefits and ample opportunities for growth.
I heard about this design apprenticeship program with Amazon, and now I'm a UX designer for Prime Video.
Learn more at aboutamazon.com.
My name is Logan Otomo, owner and operator for Otomo's Auto Towing. I went to First Alliance my first year in business. They took a chance on me. I first started with a rollback. I bought it with cash, and then I needed a wrecker. I went to First Alliance with it, and they made it happen. I needed someone to believe in me, and First Alliance definitely did.
Your goals made possible by First Alliance Credit Union. Join today at firstalliancecu.com. First Alliance Credit Union is federally insured by NCUA and an equal opportunity lender.
Welcome to the Digital Transformation Podcast. Interviews with best-selling authors, innovative thought leaders, and top-shelf executives, all driving today's digital success. This is the show that will help you take advantage of digital transformation to build your business and career. I'm your host, Kevin Craine, and I'm so pleased that you're listening. Our guest today is Tory Bjorklund. Tory is CEO of Victoria Fide Consulting, a firm focused on helping companies utilize technology to bring positive transformational change. He is also the longtime CEO of Simplicity Software, a company that develops custom software for manufacturing, accounting, and engineering, and ERP software systems. And we're here today talking about digital transformation and transformational change and strategies that we can use that will move the needle with innovation and digital process improvement. So, Tory, welcome to the program. Now, we have been exploring on this show in recent weeks the fact that analysts like McKinsey, Bain, KPMG, and others have found that the likelihood of failure for digital transformation initiatives falls somewhere between the 70 and 95% failure rate. Why so high?
Yeah, it's kind of crazy, isn't it? Those are pretty high numbers. I'll tell you, the primary thing that we see is, frankly, a lack of preparation by the companies to undertake the significant transformational changes that they're trying to accomplish. And part of the reason for that lack of preparation is they're thinking about it as a technology only initiative. And I call this a technology first mentality. They're thinking about technology. They get their IT department to roll something out. But they're really forgetting about the people and the processes that need to be involved. And they're not thinking about it as changing the company and the organization, which is really what transformation is about. And so they're not really prepared for the change. And that's really what drives a lot of the failure rate.
What do you suggest for our listeners that may be in a position where they're struggling? And how can we get out of this technology first mentality? Are there some strategies that you might suggest?
Yeah. So, well, first of all, let's figure out what do I mean by technology first mentality? So a really common example today, AI, artificial intelligence is a big buzzword. Everybody's interested in that. And I'm hearing from CIOs and other IT leaders that people in their organization are coming and saying, "Hey, what's our AI strategy?" And I've seen that before, even with blockchain. What was our blockchain strategy? And people are thinking just, what's our strategy for this particular technology? And so I think the companies really need to turn that on its head, and IT leaders need to turn that on their head and say, hey, what's our company strategy? We'll then determine what technology is necessary to accomplish the organizational strategy. So are we trying to scale? Are we trying to get into new markets, or et cetera? So then we can be looking at what technology is best suited to address those needs. But you focus on business first. You have a business first mentality and use technology as a tool to accomplish those business objectives.
With a failure rate somewhere between 70 and 95%, it surprises me that organizations would continue on to that degree and fail, if you will, how can I identify when my project is in trouble before it's too late?
It's an interesting question because it's kind of like that proverbial frog in the water, right? You're always going to have some trouble with a significant initiative while you're implementing a significant initiative. So you're going to have some trouble. When do you know that it becomes problematic? And basically, I try to break this down into warning signs and danger signs. So some of the warning signs, for example, is disagreement on scope or undefined processes, undefined requirements, unexpected gaps. It's like, hey, we thought the software did this and it doesn't. And you're finding that out when you're in the middle of the implementation. These are warning signs that you're headed for trouble. You're maybe not failing yet, but you're headed for trouble. There's danger signs, though, that you need to be looking for. And one of those, for example, is the lack of project team communication and alignment. So, for example, if people are disagreeing about what's done and not done, oh, I thought that was complete. No, that we're not done with that. What decisions have been made? Well, I thought we answered that. Why do we keep bringing this up? I thought we completed that. We answered that question already. The current status of the project. Some people are maybe saying, hey, we're on track, and others are saying, hey, we're behind. If there's a lack of alignment on these kinds of questions, your project is already in danger. You just need to see that's a danger sign. There's another thing that we call thrashing. Thrashing, last minute requirements coming up, never-ending backlog. If you're using some form of an iterative, agile type methodology, you get this backlog and it's never getting any smaller, or a lack of progress. And commonly you'll see projects, significant digital transformation projects get pretty quickly to 60, 70, 80% completion, and then just sit there, and it's not moving and it's not moving. This is a sign of thrashing. It's a danger sign. Or if you're revisiting significant previous decisions, and we just had this happen with the client, and they had just made a significant decision, and finally everybody was in alignment with it. The organization's board met, and the next day they said, we're not heading in that direction. And it significantly influences an ERP implementation. And it's an overnight, decision like that. Suddenly, your project is now in danger because you're in the process of implementing something that the leadership team now says we no longer want to have implemented. So that's a what we call thrashing. And then finally, continuous quality issues. Oftentimes, and unfortunately, people don't see this until it's getting close to the end of a project or what they think is the end. And they're into some form of testing, user acceptance testing and integration testing, system integration testing. And they just can get past the quality issues. They fix one thing and something else comes up, and it feels like a game of whack-a-mole. Serious danger signs. You're on the path to failure, not on the path to success.
What are some tactics that I can use to identify and avoid thrashing and these issues of communication and alignment? Yeah,
really, a lot of that has to do with the execution of the project and some best practices. So really, it's a matter of documenting and being disciplined to document and enroll the right stakeholders for significant issues to get sign-offs at certain points along the way. You don't want to find out that your requirements are inadequate at about the time you're about to go live during user acceptance testing. And it's unfortunate. I mean, it's very close to the end of a major phase, for example, and then users will say, well, how do we do such and such? We got to be able to do that. And they're trying to test for it. It isn't there, but it was never defined as a requirement in the first place. So really what needs to happen is that the people that are responsible, your business process owners and other business leadership, needs to review and sign off on steps along the way. You want to have early and often agreement so that you're no longer talking about, whether or not you're going to use RFID or barcode scanning. Those kinds of decisions need to be made early, and they need to be signed off on so that you're no longer talking about them and everybody is moving forward with the same goal in mind. It's really discipline. A lot of these best practices people know, they're just not executing the discipline necessary to carry them out.
Is that lack of discipline as a result of not having the proper sort of organizational structure and leadership structure in place? I mean, who is responsible for digital transformation? Is that the CIO? Is it the CEO? And what is the most effective way to really attack that structurally from an organizational point of view?
Yeah, that's a big issue, right, Kevin? It's really a C-level responsibility, and not just CIO, or it involves operations often, it involves finance often, and then of course the CIO or CTO, whatever roles that you have in the organization. But it really involves the entire C-suite that needs to provide the necessary leadership to get this right. And the reason for that is this has to be a business transformation initiative, not a technology initiative. And based on that, the entire C-suite needs to be in agreement on what those objectives are. Then it goes down from there, and it needs to be clearly communicated and agreed upon. And this is where oftentimes CIOs and other IT leadership can bring their expertise in to put together a roadmap where the technology then will align with the business process or the business goals and objectives. And once that technology roadmap is in place, then it's split into the consumable bite-sized pieces, again, usually by IT leadership, and decided at the C level. These are our priorities, and then focusing on those rather than on, everybody's trying to get their pet projects and, happening at the same time, and IT is just getting inundated with all of these requests and so forth, but really focusing on that. And then one of the things I would bring up is, I encourage companies to assess their organizational maturity. So a lot of times the problems that you see, whether it's thrashing or quality issues or whatever, aren't just project execution issues. They're really organizational issues. The organization itself has trouble being mature enough to participate as a team to execute on the change necessary to transform the organization.
Do you want to be a guest on the Digital Transformation Podcast? Well, it could happen. Tell us about your ideas and advice. What technologies and solutions do you recommend? And how can our listeners benefit from your approach? Be a guest. Find out more at digitaltransformationpodcast.net/guest.
You're listening to the Digital Transformation Podcast.
We are here today with Tory Bjorklund. Tory is CEO of Victoria Fide Consulting, and we're here talking about digital transformation, transformational change, and strategies that we can use that will help us move the needle with innovation and digital process improvement. You can find Tory and find out more at victoriafide.com. That's Victoria, Fide.com. Now, Tory, Victoria Fide has a proven process for transformational change. Can you describe that process briefly and how it works?
Sure. Basically, as we were building this process, and I've been doing this for over 36 years, I realized that basically every kind of digital transformation project, every significant technology project goes through 3 stages. And those 3 stages are preparing for the change, then executing the change, and then finally, an often missed stage is sustaining the change. And so basically in preparation, you have activities such as discovery your opportunities, trying to determine what are you trying to accomplish from a business perspective, and how is that aided by technology. So you're looking for opportunities, maybe challenges that you're trying to address, and then once you've identified those, and there's all kinds of processes for doing that, SWOT analysis and those kinds of things, but that's not a technology issue. It's a business issue. Once those have been identified and then evaluated, are these conducive to technology helping that transformation? Then you define the vision for that. And this is all part of the preparation. Then you need to, at that point, start building your digital transformation team and then enable them, whether that's empowering them, training them, backfilling where necessary. Oftentimes you're bringing in your best subject matter experts out of the business onto a significant technology initiative, and you need to backfill their day-to-day job so that they can focus on that initiative. And then you also need to be focused on enrolling the rest of the organization in this kind of transformation, which is organizational change management. You make your plan for organizational change management and start executing on that. So that's all part of the preparation. And basically what would be considered a kickoff for these initiatives is really at the end of all of that preparation, where you've done that preparation. The kickoff is really a kickoff to execution on that. And so with execution, of course, we recommend a form of iterative methodology, and there's various forms out there, but it really does need to be iterative, and iterative in multiple ways. Both at the high level, you've got a roadmap. I mentioned you want to build a technology roadmap, and so that could include multiple projects, a project portfolio, or product management. Some people use a product management methodology, and within that, you've got individual projects. Sometimes those projects are built into phases, and then you get down to iterations within those phases. So that in itself is considered iterative, but within each of those, you have basically 4 areas of activity: assessing, designing, creating, and implementing. And those mean different things, whether you're talking about writing software or implementing ERP systems or manufacturing execution systems or whatever. But those are standard activities that are happening during execute. And then finally, the third area and the third stage is sustaining the change. And basically that involves monitoring, measuring, and maintaining. Monitoring things like the organizational acceptance. Has the change actually taken with our organization? And are people conforming to the new business processes that we've defined? Is the system healthy? Did we build the system large enough? Maybe maybe it's slow and clunky and people are frustrated. Those kinds of things are monitoring. That's part of sustaining the change. And then measuring is making sure that, hey, you had some ROI calculations that you did to determine whether to invest in this change. Now measure to see if you actually are seeing the benefits you expected. And you need to make sure that those are well defined, and you need to measure against that. And oftentimes, if you're not seeing that, it's just really a small tweak or something like that. It's not a major problem, but you need to see whether or not you're getting what you intended and make the changes necessary to get there. Also, your new business process is effective. Again, oftentimes it's small changes, but if you just go live and then assume everything's going the way you planned, you're not going to sustain that change. People are going to go back to the way they've always done it. And then you also want to make sure, is our transformation complete? Did this move the needle where we thought it was? And if not, do we need to take another phase, another iteration on this or a similar project? And then finally, maintaining. You want to build into your company a methodology for continuous improvement, for regularly assessing your business processes, looking for new opportunities, and in essence, building off the foundation that you just created of the new organization, if you will, and continually transforming your organization.
Interesting to note that as you were talking about the framework for transformational change, really, you didn't say much about technology at all. It was really about the organization and the people and managing that change. Now, managing change and the people parts of it are perhaps more difficult than even the most complicated technology initiatives. What are some steps that we can take to assess our organizational change readiness and then assess our ability to change after we've tried to do so?
Yeah. Well, that's an important thing to do, and you want to do that early before you take on large initiatives. And so change readiness is really a characteristic of organizational maturity. And we talked a little bit about that, but it takes a high level of maturity for an organization to adopt significant change or to adopt change effortlessly. And so what you need to do is, and there's various ways to assess these, and there's formalized methods for doing that, but I'll just kind of give some basic ideas here. You want to be asking the questions, how well are our processes defined? Think of that as a mall map. If you go into a mall, you know where you want to go, but you don't know how to get there. You got to start with, well, where am I now? And you get that you are here. If you don't have that you are here, you won't know how to get to where you want to go. So how well are your current processes defined? How well does your organization follow those defined processes? I come into organizations all the time, and they pull out all this stuff that they did in the 90s where they documented their processes, but it hasn't been changed or updated. And people like, I've never seen that, and they're business process owners that have never seen that. And, they're not following those defined processes. So you want to find out, are our processes repeatable? And then you want to ask the question, how predictable are our outcomes? Do we get the same outcome every time? Those outcomes could be the quality of your product, your customer satisfaction, your sales funnel. Is your sales funnel reliable? How consistent and accurate is your financial reporting? Does it take 2 to 3 weeks to close out your every month, or and are you constantly making major changes? You get some kind of a financial statement, and then 2 weeks later you get an updated one that's significantly different. These kinds of inconsistencies are showing that there's a lower level of maturity that is necessary to succeed than what is necessary to succeed with significant digital transformation. The other thing is looking at defined processes that lead to, you want to define processes that lead to this repeatable performance and lead to predictable outcomes. So if you say, my answer is that our processes aren't very well defined, or they're pretty well defined, but they're not getting us the output, the repeatability or predictability that we're looking for, then ask the question, what do we need to change for that? And you need to really know if you can measure the performance of the outcomes you're looking for. And if you can't measure it, then you're probably on the lower level of maturity as an organization. And then how will you know that you got any benefit from a digital transformation if you can't measure your current performance today? So you also need to, if you're already measuring the performance, but you don't really have a process for evaluating how to improve your performance, and you've never really thought about how to improve your performance, you're probably in the mid range of that organizational maturity. But if on the other hand you've been constantly improving, you've got people that are thinking about your processes, trying to improve your processes, thinking about ways to do things better, and the phrase, better, faster, those kinds of things, faster, better, smarter, those kinds of things, then you're probably a pretty mature organization that's been thinking about how to change for a while, and you'll probably be fairly successful. Now, this is all kind of rule of thumb stuff. There's obviously formalized ways. There's actually several different methodologies for measuring organizational maturity, but that they all kind of boil down into that area of repeatability, consistency, and definition, which is what's required to be repeatable and predictable.
Do you want to get into podcasting but don't have the time, technology, or expertise to get it done? Maybe you want to create a podcast for your company or feature a happy customer in an audio interview of their own. My audio podcasting services give voice to your success and expertise. So if you like what I do, why not let me do it for you? Find out more at cranegroup.com. That's CRAINE, cranegroup.com.
You are listening.
You are listening.
You are listening.
You're listening to
The Digital Transformation Podcast.
We have been speaking today with Tory Bjorklund from Victoria Fide Consulting about digital transformation and their process for transformational change. Now, Tory, can you give us an example of one organization that you feel has been particularly successful using this approach? What did they do, and what were the results?
Yeah, and actually, they did it wrong first and then did it right. I'll just use an example of a client that we worked with where they brought us in and they had successfully implemented a new ERP system. But their performance as a company was much less efficient than they were prior to the new ERP system being put into place. And of course, the employees are saying, why don't we just go back to the old system? But the old system was not supportable and so forth. So they brought us in and said, what can we do? And so the first implementation, incidentally, I mean, it was late, it was over budget, it was less efficient, as I mentioned, than before the implementation. So we evaluated their processes. First of all, we found there was no documentation. We have no idea how they determined what the implementation should look like then for their processes, but there was no documentation. And even when we asked subject matter experts, for example, to show us and explain the process, they had a hard time articulating a process and showing it, because even one subject matter expert wouldn't do the same process consistently the same way every time. So we spent some time with them doing process design sessions in several areas. And they had a really unique way of using subcontractors, for example. And that was one of the things that was kind of a secret sauce for their company. And so we helped them highlight where the important, I call it secret sauce, where that lies, where it might be different than, typical implementations. But then in the areas that there's no reason for them to be doing it without using, acceptable standard best practices, we then help them re-implement their inventory, warehouse management, production scheduling and execution, their material requirements planning, capable to promise, all of these kinds of things, standardized, just standard practices, and we help first define those processes and what they should look like, get buy-in from all the stakeholders on all those processes, then help them reconfigure their system to match the standard methodology that was being recommended, that we were recommending for those areas. And in the end, all their processes ended up being documented. They're shielded from disruption through turnover. They have repeatable results. And the only thing that they really needed to customize and modify significantly was their subcontract, their use of subcontractors, because it was rather unique for that particular company. So basically what they did was they stopped, took a step back, said, let's take a look at our operations. What are we trying to accomplish? What are the problems with our processes that are keeping us from being as efficient as we wanted to be? Fix the processes, then go back to the technology and say, okay, let's configure the technology to match what our new process definition is. And now they've got standardized SOPs, that with people assigned to maintain them, they can onboard people, train them quickly, and everybody's following the same process for repeatable results.
Well, Tory, we have reached the action item round of the show. I'm wondering if you could please provide us with 3 quick action items that our listeners can do to take advantage of your ideas and advice.
Sure. First one is map your processes, document them. There's various ways to do that. Lean is hot right now. People are using lean initiatives, but it doesn't have to be that sophisticated, but map and document your processes. Have solid standard operating procedures that people follow. Make sure you've got that in place. Number 2, make a 1-year, 3-year, and 5-year business plan. Make sure you've identified your significant initiatives that you have for the company, whether that's going into another market, whether that's increasing your, scaling, whatever it is, acquisitions and mergers. Make sure that's defined, what your plans are for the 1-year, 3-year, and 5-year plans. And then work with your technology providers, whether it's internally or externally, to create a technology roadmap to match those plans. So that's the third thing, is build a technology roadmap and stick to that roadmap. I mean, things might change. If your 3-year plan changes, fine, change your roadmap. But as long as your plans aren't changing, make sure that you're executing on your overarching business plans, not thinking about the next, hot technology.
It has been great speaking with you today, Tory. We're almost out of time, but before I let you go, one last question. What should executives and technologists be thinking about now and strategizing for today in order to be prepared for the world in 5 years' time?
It'd be tempting to say, learn about artificial intelligence, AI, things like that. But frankly, the pace of change is accelerating so fast. And like I said, I've been doing this for over 36 years now. It's unprecedented, the pace of change right now. In order to be able to take that kind of change, and you need to have an agile organization. To be an agile organization, you have to be a mature organization. I would say the thing you want to do right now, if you want to be prepared for the world 5 years from now, is focus on organizational maturity. That'll lead to operational maturity. That'll lead to being agile and be able to take whatever changes are around the corner, because I don't think anybody can predict what's going to be available 5 years from now from a technology perspective.
That is Tory Bjorklund, CEO of Victoria Fide Consulting, victoriafide.com. Tory, it's been great speaking with you today. Thank you so much for being our guest on the Digital Transformation Podcast.
Really enjoyed it, Kevin. Thanks for having me.
That'll do it for this episode of the Digital Transformation Podcast. But join me next time when I continue to talk to best-selling authors, innovative thought leaders, and top-shelf executives, all driving today's digital success. And I'll talk to you next time on the Digital Transformation Podcast.
Cooley Bank Mortgage, your local lender for over 60 years. Cooley Bank offers a variety of home mortgage options, including home equity loans, new construction loans, and loans for investment properties. Cooley Bank's lending priority is focused on serving the communities in close proximity to their branch offices, which include right here in Rochester. Visit their website to apply and get started with a local lender today. Bank with confidence at Cooley Bank in Rochester. Cooley Bank is an equal housing lender, member FDIC.